So we start today with legislative districts. In this particular case, there is a corner of Yakima County that is in the 13th district. If you look at the map, you'll see that it's not a huge chunk, but that there are some in our listening audience, and clearly our issues are comparable to issues taking place in Grant, Kittitas, and Lincoln counties. And so representation from this region should be of interest to us, and we have Sylvia Hammond on the phone, who is running against incumbent Matt Manweller, if I have this right. Sylvia, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Well, welcome aboard. This is the preliminary round where we get to learn a little bit about you, and all goes well for you in the primary. We'll have you back later on and poke around a little deeper, but this is more of an opportunity for us to find something about you and our listeners as well, who may not be familiar with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do for a living, and your life outside of politics? Right.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm retired, which gives me a real opportunity to go 100% as far as being in the legislature without any other obligations. But for 40 years, we were farmers, and that's my husband has a family farm. We still live on our family farm between Ephrata and Moses Lake, and so we've done that. And I've also been a teacher in the public school system, a substitute teacher, while we've been farming. And so I think that's a great combination for having real life experience in two of our really most important pieces of our district, where we have agriculture, we have education, and those are both huge. So that's my background. We've been here 40 years. I may have said that. Raised 5 children here, and so we know what that's like to have a family and all the things that involves in this area.
Gotcha. First run for public office?
It is. And again, I feel that that's an advantage. I think people want to get outside of that political bubble and find somebody that is just really involved in the community. I've volunteered and been a servant in the community constantly while I, have been in the 40 years that I've been here. And so I feel like that's another side of it. It may not be an elected office, but I think it's just the other side of the same coin.
Sure. Okay. Let's talk about the other side of that coin from someone who has been directly hands-on in the community. And as you say, the minute you're raising up 5 kids in a community, you wind up being involved in all aspects of it as your kids move through school and all of that, for sure. So then what's the motivation to take on an incumbent and go join the what has been described as the snake nest of the legislature? I get asked that all the time, and I certainly understand why. It is something that I've always been interested in doing. Going way back, I know this is way back to when I was in high school. I was the first, at the time, woman to be a student body president in my high school, way back at the time when our big thing that we had just accomplished is that girls could wear pants to school. You didn't have to wear a skirt anymore. I was there for those days in my own state. I fully remember that. That was a big deal.
Those were big days. And so, I was raised in Missouri, and that was what was happening at that time. But I only say that because does that relate to this office? No. But I only say that to let you know that I've always followed what's going on in the political world. It's always been important, and I understand the influence that has on people's lives. And so I just have felt, I recently retired, my husband recently retired, and I thought, this is the next phase for me. It's something I want to do, I've always been interested in, and I feel like that I can make a big difference. For myself personally, I felt that I wasn't being represented well. And I thought, okay, if you don't feel like you're being represented well, then maybe you ought to step up and do it. And feel like I'm capable of doing that.
Sylvia, can you point to something specific when you say you didn't feel you're being represented well? What in particular, what issue is important to you that you feel you'll handle differently that you weren't being represented well on?
Well, I think that a couple of things have caught my eye. And one of those things being that there were some issues that my opponent voted on that I know I would have voted differently. For example, he voted against automatic voter registration. And anything that makes it easier for people to participate in the democratic process. And, you know, it didn't make sense to me that we wouldn't do that. And so I was disappointed in that vote. Are
you at all concerned about voter fraud and the prospect that might make it easier for that, or is that not an issue for you?
I see that I understand why people would have that initial concern, but I think the safeguards are built in there. We don't have incidences. You know, if we had a record of that being a problem, but it just has not been, and I think we have the safeguards there in place. I have confidence in the counties as they count the votes and send things on. So I think that is fear-based and not reality-based.
Okay. Is there something else? What other issue?
Other issues that concern me was that there's a vote about equal pay for women. And, of course, as being a woman, I feel like if I'm qualified for a job, then I should have the same pay as a man who's qualified for the job, doing the same thing. This easily passed the legislature. And so it's not that, and it was the same thing with the automatic voter registration. Both of those passed. But as a constituent, when I saw that my representative didn't vote for that, that was disturbing. And so and insulting as a woman. And so that's another issue that I wasn't, a vote that I wasn't happy with.
All right. Let me ask you this. We hear so much about Polarized America and East-West Washington State and all of that. How much of your concern lines up with left-right concerns, or do you think that what you deal with a little more organically, coming from someone who is a farmer's wife or maybe a farmer partner, that's a little different kind of experience? Or do you see yourself as a party loyalist or just as someone who thinks differently than a Matt Manueller?
Well, I think that I am a less polarizing figure. In fact, that's another reason that I'm running. I feel like the atmosphere is so corrosive. Everybody's picking teams and everybody's picking fights. And I'm not the least bit interested in that. I'm not looking forward to a career in politics for the next 20 years that I have to, fight for just going straight down for that voter that's going to always vote for a D or always vote for an R. I don't need to do that. And so I'm hoping that I can be a voice of reason, a voice of common ground and looking for those things. I'm not going in there rearing for a fight. I think we need to talk to each other, and especially on these local issues. I realize state or the district is it's a little less local than if you were the city council, but all the same, we need to not be, like I said, picking sides. I don't like the idea that many people, it seems, want to say the east side, the west side, the metropolitan, the rural. I'm very much a supporter of the rural district, and I plan on, if I need to, waving my hands and stomping my feet and say, hey, look over here, pay attention, look at us. We need things, and we need them in a different format. But to say that we're enemies with one side of the state or the other side of the state, I just think we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we do that. We're all Washingtonians, and the whole state, we all need each other. And so just to fight for the point of sound bites, I don't agree with that at all.
Sylvia, in an interview with the Daily Record earlier this year, you mentioned strengthening the public school system.
Yes,
We just got done with doubling up on money we spend via McCleary to try to comply with the Supreme Court's order to fund basic education.
Right.
So what is it that you would do now that we've accomplished that would be, what do you mean by strengthening the public school system?
Right. Well, I mean, that's wonderful that we, came in compliance with McCleary. We're not getting fined anymore, for one thing. But I do think that still, there are still some big gaps that need to be looked at. And there, for example, long ago, they passed legislation about class size. And so if fewer less classes, kids in the class means more teachers. But they decided that they didn't have the funding, and this is when things were really bad fund-wise, and so they did kindergarten through third grade on class size. But they didn't finish up that obligation of doing 4 through 12. And we need to look at that. Having been a substitute teacher, and most of the time I was in the high school when I substitute taught, partly because for some reason substitutes don't want to teach in high school. I loved high school. I loved that energy. I loved how smart kids are. But they need so much attention. We know that it isn't just the babies that need our attention. These high school kids, they need to have that one-on-one, and you can't do it if you have 35 kids in a room. And so I want that to move forward. It's a promise from the past that we need to work on. And then I'm really excited about pre-K, about early learning. We just got a new department. Reorganizing is what it was, not pulling up a whole new department, but doing some reorganizing. And now we have the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And a big piece of that, they moved the early learning department over into there. It was a reorganization. But with pre-K, we can get our kids in early intervention if we have enough slots and have kids prepared for kindergarten so that they're not already behind before they get a start. And, there's plenty of studies that show that by starting everyone at least as best we can on equal footing, your success in kindergarten can predict your success from graduation, or if you will graduate. So we can't just we just have to realize we have to start early. And so pre-K needs more funding, I think, and some rethinking, and as well as what I was saying there with the classroom size. We need to be looking at our community colleges, a huge asset that we have. And in addition to that, we need to be looking at the technical part of our community colleges.
Certainly. Because a lot of the jobs are going to come from there in the future. Sylvia, not to interrupt, but just to spread the conversation a little bit before we lose you here in about 4 minutes.
Sure.
What kind of farm did you guys have?
We raised potatoes, and I know this is kind of my line. I always say potatoes were our bread and butter.
Potato rolls are fantastic. I'm with you on that. That's the bread you want to be buttering right there. Good.
Yeah. So we raised potatoes in the Columbia Basin for many, many years with my father-in-law and my brother-in-laws, but you rotate that through. You have corn and you have wheat, and we even tried carrot seed one time. And in the winters, we'd often winter over people's cattle, and so we kind of know what it's like to have cattle and to be having calves born in freezing weather in February.
All right. So, well, let's ask you about that, because cattle are looked at as the big no-no for the carbon footprint and all of that, and our governor wants a carbon tax. If you go in with a D behind your name, what's and agriculture? How many trips up and down? Are you guys no-till farmers? I mean, all those kind of questions about what's the footprint like. Where are you at with the carbon tax issue for our state?
As it sits now, I don't support the carbon tax. I don't think that it is effective on this side, in the aspect of the rural side of the mountains. And again, I don't want to make that urban-rural divide, but I do think, the environment, we all know. What do we want to leave to our children? We don't want to leave a burned-out hulk. We need to pay attention. We need to have clean water and clean air. We can't live without those things. We want to have fertile soil. But this doesn't work when part of the reason for that carbon tax is to incentivize people to use mass transportation. Well, I know that there is some mass transportation in the Yakima area, and we do have a little bit of transportation with the different the county things, but it isn't viable. It isn't viable.
We can't all jump on the same tractor on this side of the hills, right?
Well, absolutely not. And no, with the actual farming and then the transporting of the goods, I think that there are things that we can do. This is what I was talking about, I guess, and not completely stated, is that anything that we pass, we need to have it work for everyone. And I don't feel like I don't want to put my foot down and say, I'm going to make things miserable for your area because I want to make this right for my area. I think that there can be carve-outs and there can be language that can make things work for the huge diversity that we have across this state. The state is just amazingly diverse geographically and economically, and so a one-size-fits-all, it doesn't work.
It doesn't.
You can work hard and make things work for the best they can for most everybody.
All right, so here's the deal. We got about a minute to go. You're in the elevator. You're trapped with Richard and I, and poor you. But you got to give us your 30 seconds about why we should vote for you in the primary.
Okay, I think you should vote for me in the primary because I respect people. I listen to my constituents. I think that I will represent the things that they want, and I will fight really, really hard to make their life better, their children's lives better, and to look forward into the future for what we need to make this or continue to be such a wonderful place to live.
Well said. Sylvia Hammond running against Matt Manueller from the 13th District, position number 2. We say, nice to chat with you. I liked what you had to say. We say that if you win, we'll see you back on our program, and best of good luck down the campaign trail as you look to serve the people of the 13th District. Sylvia, thanks.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Have a great day.